I think I better get this over with before I begin. My high yesterday was the fact that we had the ring of fire last night up at Keuka Lake. My mother, my father, and I enjoyed a nice little bonfire. It was a wonderful evening. My act of kindness yesterday was preparing everything, watering the flowers, cleaning up everything, making sure everything looked nice when my folks came up. Not that I go crazy or throw parties or anything, but it's something I like to do. And now we get to my low. Man, I really wish this was just as simple as saying that there was no new episode of Amphibia last night, because Disney was showing a marathon of Big City Greens and Amphibia up to where we are now, so it gives you an opportunity to catch up, which is nice. Unfortunately, that's not even close to my low, because I could actually sort of brush that sort of thing off. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to tell you, I can't simply brush off. In fact, it's going to be a very good while before I actually am 100% over this. Last night, a very near and dear friend of my family, who we've known for many, many years, recently passed away. And he was more than just a friend of my family. He was the friend of so many other families in probably the entirety of the Horseheads, Corning, Elmira community. His name was Lew Brown. He was a priest. So he went by Father Lew Brown. He also spent a good 20 plus years, at the time of this recording, I don't know the exact number, a good 20 plus years serving in the Navy. So he is also a veteran. But the impact that he's had on my family could never be described in words. I'd like for you all to think of this as sort of essentially a eulogy for him. As normally, if, if not for COVID-19, social distancing and everything, or not for that, I would estimate that thousands of people would be at both his calling hours and his funeral. But again, with everything going on, I can't say for certain that that's going to be the case. Because obviously, if it wasn't the case, then of course I'd go. Are you kidding me? So should that really be the case, and they're not really having calling hours or funeral arrangements because of everything going on, these are my words for him and everyone he's ever affected or touched in a certain way, in a good way. I mean, you know what I mean. Sorry. Needless to say, this is dedicated to him and all of his family, friends, and loved ones. So I don't even know where to start. I mean, my family took an instant liking to him because he bore such a striking resemblance in terms of speech patterns and presence to, I believe, my great-grandfather. Or maybe even great-great-grandfather. I don't know for certain, but it was someone very near and dear. But that's not even remotely where it ends. He was the priest who presided my brother's wedding. In fact, I remember the very night when we were at this place in Corny known as the Fun Park. It's kind of like what Harris Hill is, only in a much more obscure location. And my brother had walked up and asked Father Lew Brown if he'd be the one to preside his wedding. I witnessed it. In fact, I may very well only be the only eyewitness of that event. So, I was there for that. Flashback a couple of years to November of 2013, when my aunt had passed away. He was the one who presided that funeral as well. In fact, it was during that funeral where, well, you guys know I am Catholic. Obviously, why would I even be really talking about this? But I don't try and preach. I don't do any of that. But I do say the Hail Mary and Our Father often. But it was during that funeral where it was during the Our Father. Now, at the end of an Our Father, there's a part where it says, "For the kingdom and the power and the glory are yours for now and forever." But the way he said it, that funeral, he said, "For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory yours forever and ever." And it was ever since then, whenever I say the Our Father and I get to that part, I use "for thine" when I say the Our Father. The list of stuff like that he's done for my family goes on and on. And that's not even going on to some of my best memories of him. Normally during a church, you have what's called a homily, and Father Lew Brown would like to use props to sort of aid in what he was saying. And they were fun. Because sometimes you'd have like flowers, sometimes you'd have like little figures and stuff. This was like action figures. It was actually quite nice and fun. He made it engaging in a way. Another thing he also did was during the Lenten season, when you have to give up something for 40 days, he would talk about how he would give up sweets, particularly his Girl Scout cookies. In fact, there were a couple years for Lent where I gave up sweets as well. I guess I was sort of thinking of him in that regard, not even realizing it. I also like to think he had a not very dark, but definitely a dark and twisted sense of humor. Because we were celebrating my grandmother's 80th birthday. And for those of you guys who've been watching my videos, yes, the same grandmother who just turned 86. This was quite literally 6 years ago. We celebrated her turning 80. And, we had a nice family sort of brunch at the Radisson Hotel in Corny, New York. And we would have gotten him to, say a nice little prayer or something, for the meal that we were all having, and, to bless my grandmother for her turning 80. But sadly, he was not there. But he did leave a prayer for my cousin to read. And I forget how the prayer went, but I remember it's the sort of prayer where if you were to hear it, you would think that this is for someone who had clearly, passed on, when that was not remotely the case at all. As again, we were celebrating my grandmother's 80th birthday. This prayer that he gave my cousin was actually so sad. And don't misunderstand me, a lot of people were all teary-eyed because, again, my grandmother turning 80 was a very special occasion. Well, actually, every year my grandmother has a birthday. It's a very special occasion. What am I saying? Needless to say, though, for the record, I'm on my dock at Keuka Lake, so I had to knock on wood right there. So my grandmother's doing fine, again. Knock on wood. And it got to the point where as my cousin was saying this prayer, a prayer that honestly was so incredibly sad. Helicopter, plane flying by. the prayer was so incredibly sad that my cousin had trouble, finishing it. It got to the point where his wife or my cousin's wife, or I guess also my cousin by marriage as well, tried to console and help him finish it, and even she was getting teary-eyed too. I was actually one of the only ones who, and I don't know if you can see, but the plane's flying by. Anyway, where, I was one of the only ones not affected by what was going on. So I was about 2 seconds away from saying, "Would you like me to finish this?" So I don't know if he did it by accident, but if he did it on purpose, then that's a pretty funny way to do something like that, am I right? But now we get into my absolute best memory of Father Lew Brown. This was actually not far into me doing videos. In fact, what I'm about to tell you takes place in March of 2018. Some of you guys may actually remember that far back. It was St. Patrick's Day weekend. And as luck would have it, St. Patrick's Day fell on a Saturday. And as you know, Saturday is when, I go to church. For that weekend, it was just myself, my brother, and my sister-in-law, for reasons that I will get into momentarily. But we're sitting in church, and, I'm thinking, wait, this is St. Patrick's Day. And Father Lew Brown was presiding. This could actually be the one time where he could end the Mass on a traditional Irish blessing. And wouldn't that be cool, right? And before I continue, I'd also like to point out, a few years ago, back in, actually I believe it was May of 2017, everyone celebrated Father Lew Brown being a priest for over 50 years. He actually just passed away yesterday at the age of 79 due to cancer. And when there was a giant mass for celebrating his 50th year of being a priest, and like hundreds of people were there. Like my father and I had to save seats for my brother and my sister-in-law. My mother was working that evening. And lots of people there, lots of priests were there, lots of men in uniform. It was a wonderful occasion. But anyway, back to the main story at hand, I'm saying, about St. Patrick's Day. So we get to the end of that Mass. And again, Father Lew Brown was presiding. And he had the perfect opportunity to end the Mass with a traditional Irish blessing. And he didn't do it. I actually had an Irish blessing on hand in case he needed one. Because I just looked at my phone and I had the perfect one for him to say. Because it's actually the blessing that I've always wanted to hear him say. So you think that all hope is lost now, right? There's a bug right there. Hold on. There's a spider walking by, actually. To get rid of it. Anyway, so you would think that at this point, I'm never going to have an opportunity for him to say it, right? Well, it was around that time my mother and my father returned from a trip from Rome, and my father had been very, very, very sick. In fact, he was so incredibly sick that he spent a full 2 weeks in the hospital, and 8 of those days were in the ICU. So this was pretty serious. In fact, I dare say we almost lost my father. But this is when my father was in his hospital room, obviously away from the ICU, because this is after he was in the ICU. And I was visiting him on a Friday. I would then get readers afterwards, but that's neither here nor there. And as luck would have it, Father Lew Brown happened to be there. And this was not one full week after St. Patrick's Day. So I walked in and I said, "Father, I actually have kind of a bone to pick with you." And I explained, what happened, because, he presided the Mass on St. Patrick's Day, and he had an opportunity to end the Mass with a traditional Irish blessing, and again, he didn't do it. It was then I learned that, a priest has to do the preset blessing at the end of the Mass, so that's why he couldn't do it, but I wouldn't know that at the time. So, that day, I actually got Father to say that blessing. And he said it in the way that I expected him to. In a way that was warm and kind. In a way that was just so infectious. Sorry. So it was on my bucket list for him to be able to say that prayer. And me, obviously, to hear it. And he did. And it was as wonderful as I could have ever hoped to imagine. And I guess that's going to have to be it. Because he last night sadly passed on. So I'm not going to get another opportunity like that. There's no more of his talking about how he gave up Girl Scout cookies for Lent. No more homilies with him doing props. His warmth, his kindness. I'm never going to get that again. Honestly, the best that I and everyone else who's watching this, who knew him, who knew Father Lew Brown, can do, is use that to follow in his example. So, to end this video, I will now say the very Irish blessing that I had gotten him to say. If you've been watching my videos for a long time, it is a blessing that you've heard me say on a number of occasions. I'll say it today, and I'll definitely say it on many occasions going forward into the future. So, if I may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rain fall softly on your fields. And until we meet again, sorry, this blessing always gets to me. May the Lord hold you in the palm of his hand. And so I say, I am very humbled that I got to know Father Lew Brown for as long as I did. I am beyond hopeful that, I can use what I remember from him to follow in his example and be a better person going forward, because that's something he would want. And I hope everyone else who knew him and loved him is able to do the same. And while he may be gone, I know that both up here and in here, he has my back. And I can take some comfort knowing that he'll always be there. And that's something no one can ever take away. Thank you, all of you.